Colonel Roy Campbell here. Do not turn the game console off. The mission has not failed because you are listening to Raw Dogs. You have a mission. Listen up. Enjoy. Roy Campbell, out.
Good Lord. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Raw Dogs. This is, I think, Raw Dogs 33.
I can double check.
We've been cooking along and... Yes. Part of the Greenlit Podcast Network. Check out some of those other amazing shows.
Great shows.
Raw Dogs is brought to you by executive producers Tyler Kettler and Brian Ward. And thanks to all of our other amazing Patreon supporters as well.
Absolutely.
If you have a chance to go write a review anywhere or tell your friends, that's cool as well. But if you really want to make us happy, there is one way that, by and large, makes us happier than anything. That's what our good friend Ryan Christianick did, and he sent us a shitload of beer.
So much beer.
Wow.
Ryan, we love you.
Much wow, right?
I mean, we love everybody, but Ryan,
More than most. Yeah.
A little bit more right now.
I'll be honest with you. I had a guy in the shop a couple days ago, and he was talking about how expensive it was to ship things across the country if it's food or beverage. And he was like, I just don't know if I could even get half of this stuff across the border legally. And I said, actually, I'm on a podcast, and this guy fucking sent us a shitload of beer.
Just ship it from Texas.
Yeah.
They do not give a fuck.
Well, I don't see a problem. So, hey, yeah. Honestly, man, thank you. This is really nice of you. I'm still impressed by this because I don't do nice things for people a lot.
So from Ryan, we're going to be drinking some beer from Equal Parts Brewing. We have 3 different ones we're going to share today. Before I say what beer and we're going to drink first, I'm, of course, Brad.
Hi.
I'm one of the usual raw dogs here. And Dylan, what is a raw dog?
Raw dogs, they're a little more intelligent, I would say. More intelligent than your average breed of dogcaster. They kind of go a little further into subjects. They
Something, yeah.
their brains are bigger. Like there's more things going on.
We don't have to be as relevant news-wise, so we can just talk about whatever we want and just kind of go on tangents.
That's true.
Wait, you don't? Why am I here? This is crazy.
Tom, we checked you out of the old folks' home for this Atari episode today.
Wow. Yeah, I remember back in the day, me and Nolan used to go to school together in one-room schoolhouse.
I should Photoshop a picture of computer space with you as like in a lab coat behind it.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, the Matrix. Yeah.
No Photoshop needed, guys. That was actually
No, that's perfect.
Yep.
Do you have a photo of yourself from that time in one?
No, this is that time's a long time ago.
Yeah, I wasn't born then, I don't think.
Computer space,
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Matrix.
No, not in the Matrix. Tom was actually there for the very first video game. Was the joke?
yes.
I thought it was called Space Wars. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 versions. There was the original one, and then there was the one that the topic of the episode, Nolan Bushnell, that he took the idea and slapped it in a box and put a quarter grabber on it, and he was cutting edge in many ways. But before we get into that, what was your name again?
Hi, my name's Tom.
And
I'm an idiot.
And no, Tom is not as old as we say. He's slightly older than us.
He looks better than us, though.
That's not
There's
true.
yeah.
Guys, you guys are, I mean.
I don't look good.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
Not looking
you're
good
doing
these
fine.
days. I'm not looking good. It's okay. You can admit
compared to some people, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like crackheads, sure.
Cupheads.
You got that
Cuphead. Cuphead looks great. He's a great design.
The decomposing bodies at the body farm.
Yeah, but they donated their bodies to science.
Oh, snap.
They're a little more pure.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Happy to talk some good historical goodness and
Lee B. Bush.
and talk about animatronic bands and things.
I got a lot of things to say.
Your band should cover Chuck E. Cheese at some point.
We should actually.
And you could all just like move like the whole time.
Yeah. One poor bastard, like in the audience, is the other one is like, yeah, man. That was my jam.
Now, hold on.
Play some skee ball, motherfuckers.
With the
Yes.
number of Chuck E. Cheese restaurants there were at some point, there is probably a lot of animatronic band members just sitting around doing nothing,
Oh, sure.
being repurposed into Disney rides or Six Flags rides.
Well, there are like the Three Crow Ladies. Those ones were interesting. Like they were backup singers. Very strange.
Yeah.
And Jasper T. Jowls, he plays like the banjo.
Okay, so this will be my one and only mention of this, but I think I've mentioned this before on other podcasts. This documentary on Netflix, or used to be on Netflix, called The Rock-afire Explosion. I don't know if you guys have watched this.
No.
It is so fascinating, and it might be one of the most depressing documentaries that I've ever watched.
This
Is it
isn't
about the fandom?
Because
mostly?
it's about the fandom.
Yeah.
And one of the people that they follow around is this guy who just has this incredible just lust for Rock-afire Explosion. They're like his only friends. And he has a whole setup in his back.
What's wrong with that?
His back, he built a shed or something for the whole recreation of the stage. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but
just
you'd have to watch it. This goes beyond healthy. But I urge anyone to find it, probably on YouTube streaming. But Brad Beer.
Yes. So this is from Equal Parts Brewing out of Houston, Texas. Thank you to Ryan. This is a German-style Pilsner. It's called Lager Beer, and it's got a beautiful, Great Gatsby-esque looking can, I would say.
I like it. Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay, this sounds good.
Lager beer.
She drinks some whiskey drinks. She drinks a lager beer.
Boom.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'm excited to talk about Nolan. By the way, that is the topic of this episode. It's Nolan Bushnell.
I've wanted to do like a series for a while. I've been trying to find a good time to do this for maybe like 3 or 4 months, where I want to do like a spotlight series on some of the biggest names in the video game industry. There will, of course, be a Shigeru episode. I guess we kind of did that with our second one where we talked about Kojima.
I also think, though, that Shigeru has a better propaganda machine just based on his clout as a businessman. Like, Nolan has had a lot of troubles, and he's also been kind of a straightforward, take-no-shit hippie. So
He is a fascinating businessman who
Yeah.
is so Nolan Bushnell, and if you didn't know, creator of Atari, creator of Chuck E. Cheese. He's the reason that we have Pong, the not like the original table tennis Ralph Baer game, but Pong as a home console was created by Atari and by Bushnell, and computer space, like the first computer video arcade, because coin-op was very big back then as well, but Bushnell is the reason arcades had a major blow up. He's the reason that kids can go someplace to be a kid.
Yeah. He's the reason video arcades pretty much exist. He's kind of the root of that family tree.
I mean, bringing kids into it too. That seems to be the through line of everything I've read and researched. Is literally this guy. He saw what arcades were as kind of like these dubious kind of like hangouts where all the fucking mess up kids would go to smoke and play. God, who the hell knows what they were playing back then?
Well, I mean, this is fascinating. So, mad props to Stephen Kent's book, The Ultimate History of Video Games. I've read this thing cover to cover probably 3 times now.
It's great.
I'm guessing you've read this before, Tom.
The physical version once, listened to the audiobook twice.
Ooh, is it Stephen Kent that reads the audiobook? I wonder.
No, it's not.
It's all in the voice of Shang Tsung.
It's all.
It's a 3DO guy.
It's a 3DO skull.
and then Pong happened in computer space and Stephen Russell.
No, if you like video games, everyone should have a copy of this. It's a great read. It's a great listen too.
It almost reads like a textbook for school, a college textbook. I remember getting this. I was probably a junior or senior in high school and being blown away because it starts off. The first chapter is about like Bagatelle,
Yes,
and the precursors to pinball, and so kind of the feel of arcades. They didn't really have arcades, but they had bars. And back then, pinball machines were illegal in many cities because it was considered a form of gambling.
Yep. They didn't have flippers.
Yeah.
The original ones. Yeah.
You just had the what do you call that?
The plunger.
The plunger.
Yep.
So it's like a pseudo pachinko.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then. So there wasn't a lot of coin-op things going on. And yeah, that's kind of the climate of what's going on when this all starts up. Nolan Bushnell, he... born in Utah, raised Mormon. 1943 was when he was born. Champion debater, studied philosophy. Always kind of a shithead in a fun way. I read that as a teenager, he would attach electric lights on a kite and fooled neighbors into thinking they were seeing UFOs.
Yeah. Oh, you, Nolan.
Oh, rapscallion.
And he worked at an amusement park, at Lagoon Amusement Park, for many years while attending college. Mm-hmm. And if you were going to be selling yourself and pushing ideas out there, you got to convince someone it makes sense to try and hit the balloon or make the little ball in the milk jug.
Yes, that's where he originally got his kind of just on-the-job education of the economics of carnival working and like Midway and how a Midway works.
If you were a Mormon, I know his father died when he was quite young.
Yeah.
And I think he really, like, this is the definition of someone who became highly constructive with their pain and grief. I think that's one thing you can really put on him.
His dad still had construction jobs that were unfinished, and Nolan, as a teenager, finished them and led the charge there.
Yeah.
And he became like the breadwinner for his family pretty young. He is a talker. He knows how to draw people in.
Oh, yeah.
And, some people are the idea people. You have your Wozniaks and you have your Jobs. And we'll talk about them a little bit later too. But Bushnell...
Jobs.
Yeah, Bushnell is really good at seeing where the trends are going and grabbing onto it and making a shitload of money off it and making it popular.
Yeah. He definitely is... He liked to get high off of his own supply when it came to
in a couple of ways.
in a couple of ways. But when it came to promotion, his projects, you hear a lot of people say like he was the only executive I've ever seen who legitimately was 100% like believed in his product, or when he was selling you, like he was just absolutely giddy,
And it seems like he was quite honest about what he had. It was never too much of a swindle.
Sometimes, there's some swindling.
Yeah, but in light of those,
He believed it.
We'll talk about some swindling.
Even if it
But
was a swindle,
especially-
he had conviction behind it.
Oh yeah, but he even through that though, there's some level of like even later on, even in retrospect, he's got a good mind for what he was, and like through his failures, he really did learn a lot. It's even the story of when he made Chuck E. Cheese. He said like, well, the pizza doesn't have to be fucking good. They're
The
spending
pizza
all
is
their
the
money
least
on
important
games.
part here.
Right. He's like, kids like cheese pizza. Like they'll eat
don't give a
crap.
shit.
They'll eat a hot dog boiled in water. Like, and I think he knew that at the time too. And I don't think he was trying to like really weasel people out of their money. Like, let's be honest. A parent bringing a child to Chuck E. Cheese kind of already knows what they're getting. Even in those times, they had to be like, well, this is a children's entertainment place. It's not like it's going to be fine cuisine.
Right.
But before we get to Chuck E. Cheese, let's talk about...
Sorry, it's my obsession right now.
The beginning of video games as an industry, there are two major figures that kind of happened before Bushnell that really get things going. Steve Russell, this dude doesn't get enough credit. He was a student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and created the prototype for Space War, ! In 1961.
Yeah.
2-player game. And it's kind of asteroids. And you played on that funky little circle screen.
Oscilloscope.
The oscilloscope.
I believe, yeah. Yeah, it was, I think, the first time anyone had been able to manipulate like a movable image on a screen, or at least definitely one of the first times, if not the first time.
And these are just college kids that found access to one of the computers that was like, we can get into it late at night and no one stops us. We can do whatever we want. And
Their hobby. There's project.
Just like they go crazy because they finally get access. Like the first time a kid gets access to a Nintendo, just like try and get him away from it. So this is going on at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it was on the PDP-1, I want to say was the computer. And there was a number of these computers around the country. So this program made its way to a few different spots over the years. And of course, Nolan, while he was in college, did play a version of this. The other person that we need to talk about is Ralph Baer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who is Ralph Baer, Tom?
Ralph Baer is who I consider to be the father of video games. At least he was prolific inventor. Let's see. He made Simon.
Yeah, I forget he made Simon as well.
A lot. He made a lot of products. Who did he work for?
Sanders Associates.
Sanders Associates. Okay. But just a prolific inventor. He made the Odyssey, which is like one of the first consoles that came out, and he was credited. Well, I don't want to say credited, but it hasn't been proven, but it's been settled out of court where Ralph Baer is actually kind of the guy that invented Pong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the first one was definitely...
Or the prototype of what Pong would become, table tennis on the TV.
The games do play a little differently because, at least with Ralph Baer's home console version of Pong, with Magnavox Odyssey, which that came out in 1972, included a number of games right there, and then a light gun was sold separately. They had a light gun for the first console. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty easy technology, though, at the time. The light gun.
A lot of electromechanical arcade games, were all light gun based.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it probably doesn't look that crazy, but for the very first one, I know that was at least a selling point to a few people when he was trying to sell the console. Like, I don't like it. You just got a gun. Right. And Republicans were all over it. It was crazy.
I can hunt dots.
But yeah, that's Ralph Baer. One of my biggest regrets is he almost came to Midwest Gaming Classic many years ago just to do a panel, and he got sick and wasn't able to come. And I was so excited to go check him out. Damn it.
Well,
R.I.P. Ralph.
Yeah, at this point we have Nolan Bushnell. He's in college. He was stopping his college roommates from using his toiletries by labeling a green spray paint can as deodorant. He could find out very quickly who was using his deodorant.
I like it.
Rascal.
I like it.
This is also when he lost all of his tuition money in a poker game and had to get a job at the amusement park.
Oh, no. He had to take a part-time job to pay his entire fucking tuition.
Yep.
Darn it.
I don't know how much college cost back then, but it wasn't like today. You could just go huck some games at an amusement park to pay for tuition back then.
Do you know how often I get these old fucks in at the store who are like, when growing up, we had a cheese factory right in town, and they just let you go in back and stick your hand in it. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't exist back then. And they'd be like, it'd be 25 cents a pound for cheese. And I'd be like, cool. I guess inflation really doesn't work.
Right. We had a Nintendo called the Magnavox.
Yes.
It was a real odyssey. So Bushnell, coming out of college after he did play, he was kind of obsessed with the Space War game. So he could kind of see where trends were going. Him and his buddy Ted Dabney form a company called Syzygy.
Yes.
Which was designed to be hard to pronounce.
Seems counterintuitive.
Also, if I don't play Scrabble, but if anyone asks me for a good Scrabble word, my first go-to is Syzygy.
What does Syzygy mean?
Syzygy. Do not attempt this word while drinking. Syzygy is the line. It's the planetary lineup of the sun, moon, and the Earth. Right. So it's like a solar eclipse is a Syzygy of all the.
That's interesting.
bodies.
I learned something new today.
Boom.
You did it.
I probably totally wrong about that, but it does mean the lining up of.
You know what? I got the
things.
idea, good. So I think we're all right.
See,
So
the old man taught you something today.
Bushnell and his colleague Dabney, their whole goal was to produce a clone of Space War. And they spent a couple years. He moved his 2-year-old out of her bedroom into the living room so he could use her room as an office to make computer space.
As you do.
But it's like a permanent sleepover. It's great.
Yeah.
There's a TV in the living room. You want to go in there? Yeah. Very quickly, he is taking somebody else's idea, finding a way to make it marketable and mass produce it. Syzygy worked on this for a while. I liked the note that the prototype used an empty paint thinner can for a coin catcher.
This is very skunkworks.
What was it
endeavor.
triggered by weight then? Like if it felt like a quarter hit inside.
It probably hit a trigger on the way down, and then it just caught it.
Yeah, it just collected.
That makes sense.
That's what collected.
I don't know why I made her like a Rube Goldberg machine in my
No, it's all
mind.
right.
But
I
like,
thought about I thought about the same thing.
dun.
I'm like, I wonder how the first thing that went through my mind is like, how did they make the coin mechanism? Because they wanted to make Space War and monetize it. Like, hey, people will, maybe pay a quarter like an amusement game to play this with their friends or something. So
I was very surprised to
they
learn.
had to invent all this shit.
Well, the amount of money that people were able to make just from coin-op machines.
Yeah.
It makes me seriously, like, I want to invest in buying an arcade machine, just telling the guys at the brewery, like, is it okay if I put a machine in here if I agree to fix it and you guys can get 10% of the quarters?
And also maybe you pay for like a little bit of electricity. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I think that would pay itself off very quick, and the guys probably wouldn't give a fuck. But
That's what arcade distributors do.
What would you put in?
Oh, God. It couldn't be pinball because you wouldn't want anything too loud. The bartenders would get annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Something simple. Heck, just Donkey Kong. Like, I don't know. Find an arcade game that wouldn't cost too much and would be able to draw people in.
There were a ton of Simpsons ones that are refurbished now.
Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh,
God, no. Jesus.
that's like a
Just sweaty people coming up. I need a beer.
Not to mention that's also just a lawsuit waiting to happen. Someone's going to crack their head on the
what you're
screen.
drinking. Yes, exactly. Perfect.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they made an agreement with Nutting Associates, a maker of coin-op, trivia, and shooting games, to make a fiberglass cabinet. It was very sleek and sexy. I'm sure you've seen the picture, Tom.
I have.
Does it make you want to play it?
Is it that weird orange one?
It's like
It looks very 70s,
yeah, very 70s, very sleek.
but it also cool. Like, I mean,
Kinda looks like
it looks
the-
cool.
I've never seen
The
one in
late
the
90s
wild.
Apple products.
Yep.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, like the
monitor shape,
iMac, you know? Yeah, a little bit.
Have you ever seen one in the wild?
No, I have not. I've seen an old Pong, which had a similar
Are you talking about like the arcade Pong?
arcade Pong, like one
Yeah.
of the OG like arcade Pong.
I feel like the Midwest Gaming Classic had maybe an arcade Pong. I don't know.
That's where I'm thinking maybe I saw it because I don't know where else I would have seen something like that.
Yeah, it's something about early arcade games. It's much easier to make a 2-player game because you don't want to have to like do the extra programming to
the
have
AI.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean that's why they're so good for bars too. Like they put the prototype into a bar which is close to like a college campus where a bunch of nerds hung out.
Stanford, yeah.
And I mean, of course, like it was tough. Like Computer Space and Space War, these games are not for. I couldn't just take my fiance in and be like, Carly, play this. There's a large level of like a learning curve to it.
Yeah, and that was to the detriment of this game. I think it had like a binder attached to it with the instructions, so it wasn't a pick up and play.
Third
deal.
chapter of physics.
Yeah,
Because there was that level of engineering going on inside of their clingety clangety there.
Wowee.
Though the game was a failure, Computer Space, even though sales exceeded, I guess, 3 million, the game was a commercial failure partially because it needed so many instructions and people just didn't understand, like most parents.
they just don't.
So, 1972, Bushnell and Dabney learned that the name Syzygy was in use by a candle company owned by a hippie commune and also a roofing company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So, what are we going to call ourselves before I force you out of the company, Ted? And they were playing the game Go, which I've never played the game Go, but
I've played it twice and I found it very confusing. You've got little black little black circles and you got little white circles, but it's not like checkers because you're
not
on a weird
Othello,
grid.
right?
It's not Othello at all. No.
Yeah.
Go is a Japanese game.
Yes, and the word for check is Atari. Essentially, if you were to convert it to chess terms, it would be check. And they thought that would be a great name for their little company.
I learned that from an anime in the 2000s.
Are you kidding?
It's called Hikaru no Go, and it's about a Go player who's haunted by an ancient spirit of a champion Go player from the 1800s.
That sounds really great. And I want to watch it.
Don't. It's really for children.
Okay. Brad's pouring beer right now, and I don't know. We didn't really say what we thought about the last beer, and I really dug it, the lager beer.
Yes,
so,
I agree.
Clean, crisp
Ryan.
Pilsner. Delicious.
Ryan, you're 1-0 right now.
And equal parts as well, because that is our featured one. Because I imagine this must be one of your favorites, Ryan, because you gave us 3 cans from this brewery, which is more than any other one. This is a black lager. So it's...
Really?
Yes,
These
which
are
is a fantastic style of beer. It's called Dot Matrix, kind of like the computer space Tom used to be in. The Matrix.
Huh? Oh, remember Print Shop? My Dot Matrix printer?
Microsoft Word.
There is no spoon.
God.
You know.
Yeah, let's give it
Let's
a
check it out. Dude, yeah, black lagers.
It smells amazing.
Definitely a genre of beer that I think is underrepresented that I love.
Usually because for some people, I think it's too smoky or too like...
Caramely.
Yeah.
With all the
there's too
malts
much of
coming
a-
forward, it's just so nice and it's still drinkable, but it's got
Yeah.
such like a big flavor to it.
There's a bit of a push to it. I don't know how else to describe it. There's like kind
I
of
get
just...
behind
It's
that.
a little forceful on you.
This one tastes good. Mm-hmm. This one tastes good. Dot Matrix.
And yeah,
This one's lovely, yeah.
after taking my break from drinking, I've been drawn more to the simpler styles of beer and then also like big old fruity monsters. But like I've been staying away from IPAs. We'll see what I think of our next one when we get to it, which seems kind of an appropriate beer design. We'll get to that in a second though.
I was looking at that. Okay.
You'll have to take pictures of the
Of the cans.
cans, yeah.
For sure.
I'll take pictures of your cans.
I mean, they're less than A cups, so I don't know what to tell you. Someday, maybe.
I think that
much
they're-
bigger.
this is-
I think
Weird.
they're A+ cups.
Damn, thanks, dude. S cups.
So within 10 years.
Sorry, everybody.
With
Sorry.
Damn.
Damn, girl. Speaking of A+, within 10 years, Atari would grow into a $2 billion a year entertainment giant, making it the fastest growing company in U.S. history. Bushnell is a young dude. Let's just to talk about like the company's growing. Their first hire was the 17-year-old babysitter, Cynthia Villanueva, who was a receptionist that would just make him hold for a while, even though he was ready, just like kind of put on a big show. Like it's tough to get a hold of people around here, and there's 3 people in the company.
God damn, that's like the dream. Because then you're like hired for life. It's just like, that's my girl. I just want to be like, oh, that's my guy. Like, and I'll be like, hey, you know me, and I'll shrug my shoulders, and
Glad I
then
watched
I get
your
paid
kids.
$100,000 and plus a year. Yeah,
You watch the
thanks. I'll
Facebook
take it.
documentary, and there's like the guy number 4. He's like, I'm here too, and
Right,
I made
yeah.
a shitload of money.
It's like, yeah, huh? All I had to do was say yes.
But
Yeah.
definitely a true startup. I mean, I would have loved to have been around the company around this time.
Dude, Tom, you would have gotten into so many cool drugs.
Yeah, I mean and that's a part of the
You would have
climate.
fucked so many women,
It is the
maybe a few men.
it was
I
a
respect
sexual
women.
it was a sexual revolution, and
Yeah,
Yes.
Nolan is known for his escapades in that department.
it's not just Nolan, it's Atari.
No, it's all of Atari.
Once they did hit success with they hit success with Pong, and then with the Atari, they had a lot of money. And yes, he held meetings in hot tubs. I guess you couldn't walk into the Atari building without just the weed smell everywhere. There was no dress code, and like it was just like the Wild West of good times and 70s culture. It's
they
it's
got
just
the-
thriving.
They got the Who on the fucking radio, and you're just like, oh, fucking shit.
Which
What a
band?
time to be alive.
The Who?
Oh god.
The Who?
Sorry. Keeping it raw. That joke was brought to you by Doritos Locos Tacos.
That's right.
And 3D Doritos. Get them now.
So
Call of Duty points.
The Pong thing. Do you guys know how that came about?
Well, so Bushnell wanted, essentially, he told his buddy,
Al Alcorn.
yep, he's like, I want it so that it looks like there's like an animation of the paddle hitting a fucking ball, and then it goes just back and forth. And then he said, well, the best he could do was like two paddles that moved up and down from the side angle. And he said, yeah, that was fine. It still worked.
Well, and he told Alcorn to make a game, but he just wanted him to make something in like as a proof of concept. He didn't ever plan on Pong being released. He didn't think it would be good enough. He just made a deal with Bally. He's like, just work on something, get it out. And yeah, Bushnell did say like he had some other ideas, but Alcorn, being the genius designer, just made it do this. He added some English, which is really great. Which is where it hits different parts of the paddle, and it'll like give it like a different angle and speed.
Right.
So depending on the speed of this paddle moving up and down, if you do it slowly, it'll kind of have this direct pattern, even as you hit it on certain sides of it. But if you are quick to move and then hit it, it will gain speed and its traction will be slightly different.
Yes, and I think we should call out Al Alcorn. He was one of the earliest. He was the first engineer that Atari had.
Can you imagine discovering
And
the wheel?
He
for the
is
first
a big.
time?
The paddle.
It's just
This dude is a big part of the success of Atari.
Absolutely, because Bushnell didn't say, let's make Pong. Like, he just said, do something. We'll figure out what the big idea is going to be.
Yes.
Then they made the prototype of Pong. They put it into the local bar, Andy Caps, which if you've had Andy Caps fries, I think it's named after that bar.
It's a cartoon from the UK.
It's a
It's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
That same name, Andy Caps bar. Bushnell goes out to like have a meeting and like hype
While
up.
he eats a sandwich.
He's like, we're making this Pong game and it's exciting. I'm going to bring you like a prototype to see next time I come. And then he gets like on the way back home. The prototype had been in the bar just for like a couple of days. He gets a call. The machine broke because we don't have enough room for quarters in the bread pan. And so like Pong is an instant success. I mean, the instruction card reads, avoid missing ball for high score.
There you go.
Boom.
You just took away the binder full of rocket fucking science, and here's your.
It is
card.
one of those examples of pure rudimentary game design because you have two shapes, one line, and then one ball. Like, it's not even a ball. It's like basically a square. And then it's just like ball hit line return ball.
It's pure competition too. Like today, if a Pong machine was just the only arcade game in a bar, a bunch of people could get together, have beers, and just get way too into it.
Oh yeah.
It's simple, it's fun, and it's competitive, which is what drunk people love.
Well, those are the games now that have become so popular. We're returning to this philosophy of game design even as the games become more complicated. It's this idea of like infinitely replayable, still containing the same idea of multiplayer focus.
Yeah.
Like Fortnite is a lot like Pong in a lot of ways. Like if you think about exactly what it's going for, how people can play it for 10 hours straight.
It's just it's finding the gameplay loop that keeps drawing people
It's
in.
the proper loop, but it's based in simplicity. Get to the center.
Yes.
Shoot the person. It's all the same crap at the end of the day.
And that was one of the tenets of Nolan's philosophy for the company was make games that are easy to pick up, difficult to master.
yeah.
Yeah, and Pong was a raging success. It was insanely successful. It was, and I mean, granted, he took the table tennis idea from the Magnavox Odyssey, and there was a whole Magnavox sued them, and they had to deal with this in court. But Atari doesn't own the copyright, and they can't stop people from, making these clones. And I guess what is like,
Yeah. That was one of the things called out was whereas Ralph Baer was an incessant patenter of everything that he made.
yeah.
Atari and Nolan, at least in the early days, we're not. They did not patent anything, and the patent process during that time, it took a long time to get a patent. So even if you did, by the time you got the patent, there were already a lot of competitors just aping your idea. So we had to deal with that.
Yeah, so late 1972, Magnavox takes Atari to court for violating the patents. Bushnell denies playing the Odyssey at like a trade show. Later litigation reveals he most definitely did, because they're not going to forget someone the height of Tom.
Yes.
That is like, I fucking love games. This is great. That's the
I don't know if
reason
they
I
could-
never forget
Who
Tom.
could actually talk to people? Like, oh, you mean the charismatic guy
Who
Was it
smelled
ever
like weed.
who actually looked good and was like,
So yeah, was it ever proven that Nolan was there?
It was later litigation definitely revealed he did after this instance.
I mean, photos were so expensive then, you know.
They wound up, it was very advantageous to Atari. It was an inexpensive settlement proposal, a very small upfront licensing fee of $700,000. So everyone else who wanted to use the idea had to go to Magnavox and pay per machine.
So before they won, or they settled this suit before Pong really took off. So Magnavox at the time was like, all right, we'll give you an upfront, we'll say an upfront fee for $700,000, and that's all you have to pay us. Plus, for 1 year, we have dibs on anything that your consumer division, produces.
Which is very easy because you say, we're not releasing anything for a year.
Exactly.
Yep.
But once Atari settled and Pong became huge, Magnavox was like, oh shit. And like you said, Brad, they anyone else who tried to make a Pong machine, they're like, no, you don't get a licensing fee. Or you pay for the licensing fee plus we get royalties.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Magnavox, in hindsight, made a very poor decision with this, but at least the Odyssey did get a bump in sales from people getting more obsessed with video games. Like, you can play Pong, a version of Pong at home with the Magnavox Odyssey. Some numbers here. Pong machines were getting $1,200 up front. You could buy yourself a Pong machine from Atari. Cost them about $300 to $400 to produce. They could produce maybe 10 machines a day, and many of which did not pass quality testing.
No.
Also, think of it this way: every time that an Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 is sold, they are losing money.
Yeah.
They're losing big time money. They're counting on you digitally downloading some crap that they can take advantage of you.
Yeah, and it's like long term they're going to make their money back. That's something the Atari 2600 ultimately had to do. Was sell at a little bit of a loss. What is it? Like, sell the razors to get them the blades or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the home console kind of philosophy there.
So
the only people these days who actually make money on their consoles is just Nintendo. Nintendo has the Wii. Famously, they made their money back pretty quick because they knew the technology was going to get old faster. So they knew that when they sold it a year later, it was going to be worth that much less. Yeah, Nintendo.
Yeah,
they're the champs of this.
So other machines were collecting $40 to $50 a week in quarters at the time. Pong machines were collecting up to $200 a week. So in 6 weeks, if you bought a Pong machine, you'd be able to make your money back. This was around the time, too, when Nolan started his ideas for Chuck E. Cheese, because he realized people are making a shitload of money off of these machines, and once we sell them, we're out of it. So under Atari, they started coming up with an idea for a family-like arcade pizza place. This is when some of those ideas started. By the end of 1973, Atari had fulfilled orders for 2,500 Pong machines. By the end of 1974, they had 8,000. Sadly, there was a shitload of clones, and Atari couldn't do anything about that, really, because what are you going to do? We're using this illegally first.
right.
The bootleg market was huge for these because how could you even prove it then, too? Like, there's not as much proliferation of documentation of daily life, even. If someone's got some, backwater programmer in like I don't know, Crivets, Wisconsin, who sets
Fucking
up
Crivets.
Dude,
Wow.
that was a pull.
Shout out to Crivets.
baby. But if they just get one, they buy it off of some dude, and it's just like, all right, well, this is in the bar now. Like, there's no way to be like, you're getting served papers.
Yep.
What are you going to do about it?
So with the advent of all the people that, or all the companies that tried to ape the idea, or the imposters, if you will, what does Atari do? They say, let's create our own competition.
Yeah, I really like this turn for Key Games.
Key Games. Nolan Bushnell's neighbor, is it Joe Keenan or I forgot who it is, but
yes,
he walked over to the fence, like Home Improvement style, like, hey Wilson, hey Keenan, do you want to be the head of a video game company
that Atari definitely owns and is in charge of, but no one knows about it?
Right.
Well, it's kind of like a Pepsi or Coke situation. There's 2 to 3 distributors in major cities back then that are putting out their coin-op games. And if you have Coke, you don't have Pepsi. That's kind of what it's agreed upon.
Yeah. So if I carried Konami games, let's say me and you, Brad, we distribute to Crivets, Wisconsin. All right.
Why?
That's because they have a bar there.
Okay.
Also, way to leave me out, fucker.
You're the consumer out in Crivets.
Okay.
You're running the bar out there.
So we are the distributors to Crivets. I carry Konami games, which means Brad, Dylan, you guys can't carry Konami, but Dylan, you can carry Bally games.
I love that.
And I can't carry Bally games. It was kind of like a law, just
an unwritten rule.
Unwritten, like, all right, you get your companies. And Nolan and Atari were like, okay, so how do we get more distributors to sell our games?
Yes. And funnily enough, Key Games is wildly successful. They create the game Tank, and they were doing so well they wanted to break away from Atari. And in an ironic twist of events, Joe Keenan winds up the president of Atari.
Yes.
Yeah. Later on, they're like, he's doing a good job. We want him to kind of move over there. Once they did wind up selling out later.
Yeah. Once those barriers were kind of brought down and distributors started carrying everything, they're just like, okay, let's buy Keenan games back or fold them back in and put Joe Keenan as the.
That guy was just moving to the right house.
I don't know if it's Joe. I'm sorry, Mr. Keenan, if you're still out there.
I should have it written down here.
Jay, John, Roger.
Joe Keenan. It's Joe Keenan. Yeah.
Joe. All right. Joe. Motherfucking Joe.
And another way that they were trying to keep up with the competition was they were producing Pong variants as fast as they could. There'd be like multi-Pong or quad Pong or like different...
Dr. Pong.
Dr. Mario.
What the fuck is
Pong.
Dr. Pong? Yeah.
There's an episode of... It reminds me of an episode of That 70s Show where Red and Kelso actually modify a Pong machine. Or was it the Atari 2600? Have you guys ever seen that episode?
I don't think so, no.
It's a B plot, so I guess maybe you wouldn't, but I seem to remember this very well. They said, well, we want the paddles to go faster, and we want the ball to move faster, so they modded it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But one last thing before we go to break, let's just briefly mention they were making a lot of money. They were all very high. They were having hot tub parties.
Yep.
There was a lot of sex going on, consensual by everyone's account. Everyone's like, yeah, we just kind of fucked a lot.
Free love, baby.
I know at one point he was about to get awarded for a Lifetime Achievement Award, Bushnell, and there was the cancel culture coming after him, and tons of Atari.
Recently.
This is a couple years ago.
Yeah.
This is a recent thing, and like a ton of females from Atari came forward. They're like, it was a sexual revolution, and everyone was boning a lot. It wasn't like we were. No one was unhappy. Like everyone was just drunk and fucking. Like it was a good time, and everyone's like Everyone at Atari pretty much stands by Nolan. Like he wasn't doing anything that everybody else wasn't doing, and we all enjoyed it.
I don't understand this incessant need to go after people because they have a different lifestyle than you.
Well, and this is a situation where I think he wasn't doing that much wrong. You look back at
No, he wasn't.
bands like Led Zeppelin that were doing way like there's some situations where people should
Like Stairway
be
to Heaven.
Stevie Nicks was getting cocaine blown up her ass because her nose was so blown out from it. I'm not kidding.
I know, it's
That's
just
an
fun.
actual story.
It's just fun to hear. It sounds like it was a pretty fun place to work if you were young and part of the scene in the 70s. This is what people were doing.
Content and context is everything. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And before we leave, let's just mention that one of the new games that they created was called Gotcha, because most games were phallic in nature with the joystick. So Gotcha was designed to be played by grabbing two boobies.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And, okay, talk about...
All right, take everything back about the whole cancel culture thing.
Well, Gotcha.
I do it to my girlfriend. It's fine. She likes it.
Like the advertisements for the cabinet
guys
is
play
like...
Gotcha?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lady running away from a guy who's like, I'm going to get you.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the era of Custer's Revenge.
The era of Custer's
Oh,
Revenge.
we're getting into that. Yeah.
But, this was a maze game, and it didn't do that well. But in retrospect, maze games became very popular later on. And at one point, Bushnell was laying out plans for a prototype of a 20-player version to be like played in arcades. I'm like, damn, that sounds pretty cool back then.
Yeah,
They
it's like
took the
Steel
boobies.
Battalion.
They took the boobies away after a while and just let you play with regular joysticks.
What if you could play Steel Battalion with the booby controller?
Think of like how many different like nipples you'd need on that thing.
I mean, it's basically like Donkey Konga. I don't know.
Donkey Kong on a Steel Battalion on a Donkey Konga controller.
There you go.
That'd be a speed run I'd watch.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Jungle Beat is a pretty good platformer.
Yeah.
I've never played Jungle Beat, which is odd because I have
either.
the bongo controllers.
It's honestly the only redeeming quality of those controllers. Conga sucks.
But really, I was just like, give me a fucking Donkey Kong game. We opened up another beer from our good friend Ryan Christianek. We're joined by Wild Woody, it sounds like over there. From Equal Parts Brewing, this beer looks like it's got a million tabs open and the computer is crashing. This is called Nude Tane. It's a hazy double IPA generated with Mosaic, Ella, and it looks like an experimental hop. It's got a quench subroutine, 8.5% ABV.
A quench
Quench
subroutine.
subroutine. I love it.
I was like, what?
I'll make sure you guys get to look at the can after I pour some of this out.
Yeah.
I like programming humor. I love it.
Just like that.
program.
Just like that news article of you as a kid saying, "I hate farming. I like computers."
That is literally the funniest thing I think I had read in a long time because it explains you to a T.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like
I haven't, and it also says I haven't changed much
because
since I was
literally
14.
it was literally the fucking farming club.
So, over the break,
Sorry, everybody. Back to
No, that was good.
over the break, we decided we're going to save the Steve Jobs working at Atari as a 20-year-old conversation for the Doggies After Dark portion.
Yeah.
Just because if we get into it, it's going to be too long, and we don't want our Atari episode and Chuck E. Cheese.
and it's
episode
fucking
to go.
fascinating. So
Honestly, we could have a whole Steve Jobs episode at some point.
We might have to
Honestly.
at some point.
So I say we leave it for that.
So we're gonna save that for a little bit. We'll talk Doggies After Dark for a little bit, but
But after dark, we don't delve into things.
there'll be a bigger one later.
I think Dylan knows what he wants to talk about for Doggies After Dark. Right
Maybe.
But the next big thing was, okay, well, we have Pong in every bar that we can, and other arcade games we've been working on, but we need a home version of Pong. And
The next evolution.
we need to get video games in people's homes. So, Home Pong, a console that just plays Pong.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward. They were able to find a way to make it about $100 is what it was costing back then.
That was a lot back then.
Was deemed way too expensive for a
Yep.
toy.
That's huge.
Interestingly, they were turned down by pretty much everywhere, including Sears Roebuck, but they noticed the sporting goods section had the Odyssey, so they didn't sell it as a toy. They sold it as a sporting good, which I think pretty shrewd in retrospect. I think that's a good idea.
Can you even imagine like the next God of War right next to like kettlebells?
I mean, that's the way it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might have been that way when I was a little kid, because that was in the 70s yet. So
Yeah, so they were showing it off at Sears Tower, and the home Pong was failing to work because the Sears Tower broadcasts on Channel 3, so the machine wouldn't be able to transmit to Channel 3. Luckily, Al Alcorn was there, opens the machine up, it's like stall for 5-10 minutes. He changed it to go to a different channel on the inside of the machine, so they put it to Channel 4, and it was able to actually work then.
Fucking genius.
Bushnell.
Thank God he was there.
Yeah, he was able to promise, he's like, we'll do 75,000 units. And they wanted 150,000, and Nolan's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Sold. Oh, shit. We gotta make
Overpromise,
these now.
underdeliver, the American way.
If you promise me you won't die right now, I'll have sex with you. I promise I will never die. So then they have this deal. They have to make a shitload of home Pong machines. Sears naturally wants to come in and check out the facility. When they arrive, Nolan was sitting in a box on the conveyor belt. It's reeked of weed, and he's just in a t-shirt and jeans. Didn't leave the best impression on him.
Come on, TV sucked back then, so you really, you had to find your own fun.
Well, while you were working was probably not the right
And
time to
stone
ride a
out of your
conveyor
mind,
belt.
probably. Yes. Let's ride the conveyor belt.
When you're a
I mean,
creative-
that's something I would totally do.
Yeah, I mean, they tell you not to ride on pallet jacks in breweries.
Dude.
Everybody rides on pallet jacks in breweries.
I've worked
They're
in,
like horsies.
I've worked in some amazing, like, huge warehouses that have these intricate fucking conveyor systems. And, dude, even now, I'm like, I'll see some of these. I'm like, I want to ride that.
Oh, yeah.
I would ride that.
Yeah.
So hard.
It's still strange that there's just Bushnell, this young dude, leading one of the biggest industries happening in America.
He's a regular old PewDiePie or something like that. Ninja?
But with talent. He has charisma and...
I know.
Yeah.
That was me making a joke. I was being glib.
So that night, they wanted to make it up to Sears and prove to them, we can wear suits. So they all wore suits to a dinner, and then Sears shows up in t-shirts and jeans because they wanted to look cool. Love it.
Telling you, make a great scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio, as we were talking during the break, was really wanting to play Bushnell in a documentary. I think after Wolf of Wall Street, he kind of made a movie that kind of covered some of those ideas he wanted to explore.
But also then
And
he
he
was
was-
also Howard Hughes in The Aviator.
That's such a good movie, too.
Yeah.
That movie's okay.
His
I'm not a huge fan.
production company still, I believe, owns at least some of the rights to the movie.
Atari releases the home version of Pong in 1975. They sell 150,000 in one season. At this point, there was a merger with Key Games. Joe Keenan becomes president of Atari. Al Alcorn is the VP of Research and Development.
Yep.
And Bushnell is kind of getting more, not pushed to the side, but there's not official things for him to be doing other than just be the idea guy and kind of just drop in on people. And from some accounts, this is when people have to start, they call him Nolan attacks. He just shows up and tries to make things better, and they'd come in right after he leaves like, don't do what he said. Which I've definitely worked in places where that is the policy.
Whenever the boss shows up,
Yep.
your actual boss will say whenever, do not listen to anything he says.
It's like The Office. Like Steve Carell tries to have an idea and everyone's like, we're just not doing that. We all agree.
Yep.
Moving forward.
That show stresses me the fuck out.
Yeah.
The Office?
Yeah. Because it's also a living nightmare. I don't want to have jaunty adventures with my fucking coworkers. Get out of here.
Now, I've never played an Atari 2600.
Have you never?
I don't believe I have.
I remember you
We're
saying
going to
that.
change that.
Wow, yeah.
And I haven't played
fuck off, you.
And I haven't played the new Atari VCS, which just came out either.
Tom, we may have to rejigger some of the wires because my dad knows a little bit about he knows he's an amateur electrician, let's put it that way. And he actually, because it wouldn't fit into the TV that we had at my grandmother's house, he was able to split the wires and make it work.
Okay.
We may have to put it back to the way it was. It might be a fun project. We're going to make you play some of it though, because I think I have around 25 Atari games.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it from a garage sale. I bought it for $5.
Yeah.
As most people.
Paddles.
Yes.
These are my
paddles.
two Atari games that I have here, despite not having a system. I believe these are Atari games. I think Combat definitely is.
Yep.
This is 2600.
Those are 2600s.
Originally, it was called the Atari VCS. Nolan knew to compete and stay relevant, he wanted to include video carts, which the first system to do that was the Fairchild Channel F.
Yep.
The Odyssey's games were actually hardwired into the console, which is subtle distinction versus what the cartridges were. Actually, everything was self-contained on there.
Yeah.
Well, that's what made it popular, is because he wanted it to be like a record player, where you buy the thing and then you buy the things that go in the thing.
Because you can keep making things rather than have to make whole new
Exactly,
consoles.
because making one of these costs a lot less than making a whole new fucking platform.
They realized, though, that in order to produce this console at the scale they wanted to, they would need some capital, and I guess the stock market was in a bleak condition.
Yep.
So
They couldn't go public
Is this when they were
and
rationing?
bank on a lot of money.
this
Is
is
when
when
they were rationing gasoline and shit like that?
I don't remember this at all. I don't remember that part.
This is the mid 70s.
I don't think we're quite there yet.
No, I know.
We're almost in that time frame.
Before we didn't talk about this beer. This is the Nude Tane, the computer beer from Equal Parts Brewing, hazy double IPA.
Yes.
You know what? I don't like most hazies. I think they're a little too.
They have like a soapy flavor to me.
Yeah. But this one is really nice. It's fruitier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the hazy because the hazy kind of masks it being an IPA a little bit for me.
You're not a big hop guy, right?
No, not really. But I have been trying to train my taste buds a little bit to accept them into my heart, and it's been working a little bit. But yeah, this is really good. Not the best one I've ever had, but it is definitely. You can't beat that fucking the art on the can.
My dream is to just make art for beer cans, I think.
That is an attainable dream. There's a lot of breweries that would love to feature artwork. And you have a unique style, so.
Yeah, I think I could do something.
And most
like
breweries would just give you beer and not pay you, so.
Right.
as long as I get a high enough supply, yeah, of course.
I love getting high on the
I like
supply.
drinking while I draw, so.
Atari makes the decision. We are selling to Warner Communications. And there were some stipulations in this agreement that Nolan would later, I don't think he would say he regrets. He probably, because he's got a real good outlook on the past. I've listened to some of his like recent interviews, and he's like, I wouldn't change anything. It got me to where I am now. I like what happened, but they sold Atari for $28 million to Warner Communications. He was kept on. And Atari 2600 would release August 1977. Cartridges would cost less than $10 to produce, and they could sell for $30. They were not making that much money on the physical consoles, but they were unable to get most of the 400,000 units on shelves for that holiday season, which caused a giant rift in, at least from Bushnell to Warner, about the future of the company. He was seeing the VCS as kind of being outdated. There was already other consoles coming to market that were going to be competing, the Coleco and a number of other ones. But his stance was sell off the remaining inventory.
Yeah.
The market is saturated. We need to move on to the next thing. It's over.
Yes.
And Kassar, what's his name? Ray Kassar was sent to Atari by Warner to assess the situation. Essentially, they were sending him to say, we should kill it, because that's what they wanted to hear. But Ray said, I see a lot of promise, and I think we should do something with this.
Yeah, and I think this part of the story really goes to kind of help sum up Nolan, at least his approach to what he does. And he has a short attention span. This guy has ADD.
I've heard him say, the people say he has the attention span of a dog.
A dog, yes.
Yeah.
So
Something we have in common.
I think he thrives at the gestation and the genesis of businesses and just building them up. And then once he gets them up to a certain point, he tends to maybe lose a little interest and then go on to the next, or want to go on to the next.
I would describe that more as a God complex.
Well,
God creates the world in 7 days, and then he kind of says, let's see what happens.
Well, he's jumped around a lot, but to get back to this, where, okay, Ray Kassar comes in as kind of the new CEO, and says, "Hey, we have the Atari 2600. The VCS is out. We don't want to abandon it if it's not selling great right now, or we don't think it's performing. How do we make it perform?" Whereas Nolan's like immediate like response is, "This thing isn't selling. Let's make a new fucking console."
Yeah, let's move on to the next
Instead
thing.
of like, hey, let's just let this thing, let's figure out a way to make this successful. That this thing that we already have.
To him, he's at the finish line, and
Right.
to Kassar, he's like, there's a lot
That's
of
old technology. Let's keep going.
the race has barely started.
Right. That's his brain.
I listened to a podcast with him yesterday, and to like recent years, even he'll make a list at the beginning of the year of 10 things he's never done before. And then he'll like roll the dice on a random one, and then he'll put his energy into it because he thinks that makes him, that provides happiness doing things you've never done, and it allows you to like learn and grow and do new things. So that's part of what he wants to do. And he's
it's like a thirst for new, pursuing the new.
This guy created like the video game arcade industry, not single-handedly, but he was one of the main driving factors. Then he moves into Chuck E. Cheese. He started like 20 other companies, and he's one of those people that he can spend money as fast as he makes it, and he has a good time doing it, and he changes everyone's opinions on the way.
He lives life.
Very fast and very hard. There's a reason I wanted to talk about this guy. He's fucking fascinating.
Just listen to him
Yes.
talk in any interview. He's charismatic as fuck. He knows exactly what to say and how to say it. He's very eloquent, and you can tell the dude's a fucking pothead because he'll slip a few he'll slip a few words in there, and you're just like, oh, I know what you're up to.
They had fun. They had some fun back
They don't
then.
hide it.
God,
Yeah.
man, yeah.
Now, November 1978, Bushnell was forced out of the company after a dispute with Warner over its future direction. After the meeting, he was with Warner. He was discovered holding a private meeting saying, "This is what we're actually doing." As soon as that happened, boom, you're gone.
Yep.
And
I mean, that's what happens.
that's what happens. He was fucking around probably when he shouldn't. At this point, he's a millionaire. He owns homes in like 7 different cities. He owns a mansion in Paris, like on the same block as the Eiffel Tower. This dude goes hard. He owned 2 private jets.
Can you even imagine having that much money? I'd probably still live in the same place, and I would probably just look at my bank account every day and go,
Well, and he said he was living by the philosophy, I bet I can make it faster than I can spend it. And he's like, that was maybe a mistake.
Yeah.
you got to save it.
And just to briefly mention, Steve Jobs came to him and said, if you give me $50,000, I'll give you 1/3 of Apple stock because we need some funding.
Yes.
And he said no.
Whoa,
We'll talk more about
Right.
What a
Apple
mistake.
We should say
later.
that Steve Jobs was an employee at Atari.
We have a lot to talk about that.
Yes.
We'll save that for the after episode for a little bit. But
He made Pac-Man and everything.
he signed a non-compete clause for 7 years. Nolan couldn't be involved in the video game industry directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of his
Ain't that
getting put on the beach.
fucking crazy, though? That's fucking nuts. Like,
Well, he signed that. He's like,
know.
I'm,
He
I'm,
didn't
I'm
think
working for
twice.
Atari. I'm not going to need to.
Those
the
are pretty
whole-
common.
no, yeah. And it's the same thing with like movies and television shows and stuff like that. But usually the agreement is like 2 or 3 years. It's like, that's what Charlie Sheen had to do for when he got fired from 2.5 Men. I don't know why I know that. I just know things.
Tiger blood, baby. It's got that. You got the tiger blood running in your veins.
Yeah, well, I'm straight up wizard.
Yeah, but Nolan still made a percentage off of Atari's profits.
Yeah,
He
even
was
when he was
doing okay.
he was doing all right.
So one of those houses, you're fine.
He was doing so well that he was able to buy Chuck E. Cheese, the property, on the way out. What was it for? 500 grand at the rate of $100,000 a year.
Yeah,
And just the one location that had he had open, he's like, this is going to make money very fast.
yep.
Well, he basically did this. He came up with this idea apparently in one night. This is
It's
the
called
lore.
cocaine. And that's how
called
every
coke.
pizza business in the history of pizza has been invented.
No, sometimes it's the love of an Italian mother.
Okay. Okay. So I will give you that. Sometimes it's Italian mother. Every other time it's cocaine.
You have to actually be Italian to have an Italian mother, though.
I will say, if people know me, I used to work for a pizza place.
So did I.
And I know that at least one was started on a lot of cocaine.
I'm not going to say anything about
Rocky Rococo.
I'm not going to say anything.
Rocky Rococo.
Hey,
I'm not going to say anything about the man who basically taught me how to cook most things.
Okay, but
stay tuned for Doggies After Dark.
well,
Now,
so bars like video games and pinball machines were mostly associated with after hours, with bars, not places for kids. And this was there was kind of a stigma to it. And around this time, pinball machines were
Dirty teenagers.
pinball machines were legalized. Like legalized pinball actually happened in a court. Like that's just bonkers to me in itself.
in relatively recent history, this is the end of the 70s. Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
There was no pinball in Chicago until like 1979 or
Because they had to prove it wasn't gambling because it was skill based. They had a guy in court show like, this is how you get the triple score and I'm the man. Can you imagine being that guy just like showing off how badass he is in court playing pinball? Yeah.
Now you do it, Judge.
There's a good Netflix series at least in there.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to go back to The Who.
But
Pinball Wizard.
yeah, so this is a time
Played by Elton John in the movie Tommy.
This is a time when video games are being associated with mostly bars. And Nolan's idea, family friendly, give the kids a couple of tokens on the way in to get them started gaming. It takes a while to make pizza. It doesn't matter if the pizza's good. And then also just put like some animatronic shit there for the parents to watch while the kids are playing and everyone will be happy.
Well, now, did you know that originally when he was coming up with the idea, he went to what's called like an amusement park expo, and he was looking for a character to be the mascot, and he sees one in the corner, and he says, "Oh my God, look at that fucking thing!" And he's like, "It's a coyote." and then he like buys it, and when he gets shipped, he gets so pissed off because when he opens up the package, he sees a big pink tail, and he realizes that it's a fucking rat.
It's a rat.
And he's like, "How am I gonna sell a fucking place with a rat as the mascot?"
So, yeah.
Wait, so your restaurant's mascot is a rat?
It's a rat.
Yes, it's a rat. I don't remember what it was originally supposed to be called, but it was something like Coyote
Pizza.
Coyote Pizza. Yeah.
And
I will say,
ugly.
Chuck E. Cheese is a good name.
It is.
kind of.
It's better than Rick Rat,
Rick Rat's Pizza.
No, I fucking love Rick Rat.
which was the original.
Well, there was a play on Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in another universe, no, he's the next fucking Walt Disney. But I mean,
He's just like bastardizing Mickey Mouse. Like, we'll make him a rat.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, Oswald the Rabbit came before.
We're gonna sue you,
Mickey.
bitch.
Here's but it's like making a cockroach here. Let's open this restaurant and let's have a cockroach as the
We have a Euro place with a cockroach mascot. Carry the cockroach.
I mean, it's absurd when you think about it. Yeah.
I think that's the most entertaining part of it is that the next day he had to do a fucking pitch and he's just like, no, it's a rat. And I don't know. Have you ever heard of why it's named Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah.
It's because it's the 3 smile rule. You have to kind of smile 3 times during it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I bet you I can say it really piss off Chuck.
Chuck E. Cheese.
We have opened a portal to hell, everybody.
Yes.
There's a portal. Oh, God. Oh, jeez.
We are singing it like Lamb of God.
Rocket fire explosions going down with the ship right now, everybody.
And this has always been the most entertaining part of it is like the character creation, the pure. This is the nearing the 80s, which I consider to just be pure capitalism.
I view Nolan as somebody who definitely has that side to him, but the other side of him kind of outweighs that a little bit.
Sure. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, but like you mentioned before, Brad, he opened this, or the arcade portion at least, to give them a way to distribute their games, but also reap the benefits of people playing the games. So maybe you get the games at a discount, plus you make the money.
If kids can be happy to have Pong and skee ball and pizza. I'm not. That's for me though. He's also a money guy who wants to own a yacht called Pong because he had a yacht called Pong.
It's sick.
Yep. And he crashed it into he was trying to show off to Warner Communications and crashed it into a buoy in the San Francisco Bay. And it was a tremendous failure. It sounds like that was a really great night for a movie scene as well.
Yes. That'll be in the movie.
I have to marvel at the fact that this had never been approached by another person really beforehand. And it had been pseudo tried, but with the backing and the money right away, it was an immediate success. Think about it like this: like a Chuck E. Cheese location is this place full of a lot of games and a lot of distractions for young children. Early on, you would have a bar for the adults. The early incarnation of Chuck E. Cheese smoked a cigar.
Yeah.
He was a Joyzy rat, and he was just fucking like mean and snarky, and they all talked out of picture frames, these early animatronics.
Yeah, they weren't full-bodied.
What I have to say is that what's genius about this is he gamified an entire location by offering tickets and prizes. He made the entire establishment its own game.
And there was a mistake that was made. In that
Mistakes were made.
Well, in that they open up this and then a few other locations, and they are fucking gangbusters right when they open. And they didn't realize they're not going to come 3 times a month. This is every once in a while someone might come there. But you had mentioned, I can't believe that there wasn't another person that did this earlier, but there was a certain bear that came shortly afterwards. And could you tell us a little bit about that bear?
The guy from the Rockefeller explosion.
Because this is a Midwest thing. Maybe you know more about this, Tom.
I'm too old for it. No, Shakey's didn't have the Rockefeller. Showbiz, thank you. Okay, yeah. I've heard about Showbiz. I've never been to a Showbiz.
Well, Showbiz, the guy that was originally going to start, the reason Showbiz exists was because that guy was going to originally be the lead franchisee of Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh.
And I don't know I can't remember the exact details, but
sure.
So he was gonna sign. The deal was almost done. The guy was going to franchise 200 locations, and then at the 11th hour, that guy backed out and said, basically, I could do this myself. I don't need this. He found another animatronics guy, the guy that did the Rockefeller explosion, and said, I'm going to start my own company call it Showbiz Pizza. And so they became rivals. I think Bushnell sued.
Of course. I mean, that's just the way.
Yeah.
And he won, so he got to make money off of all of Showbiz as well.
Right. So, yeah, he did get a percentage of their profits. And then in the end, I don't know if we want to skip to the end of that story, but
sure.
Turns out 1984, Chuck E. Cheese files its first bankruptcy.
Which it's filed for many of them.
So
because they realized it was a flash in the pan thing, because people would come for like birthdays and the kid would outgrow it.
Well, we had the crash of
video games
in the U.S. at least, the crash of video games in '83. So business really dropped off. Showbiz was able to liquidate some of its locations and stay afloat. So they ended up acquiring Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
And then not soon after that, but around like in the early 90s, then they started basically a reverse merger where Showbiz ended up becoming Chuck E. Cheese again because they lost the Rockefeller explosion guy.
Well, what's more or less fascinating,
anyone let them have the characters,
is that they kind of like amoebas. They glommed on together, and in some locations
you could see both of them.
You can see both of them, one of them, or none of them, and it creates this almost like Mandela effect in the psyches of children growing up at the time. Because if you talk to one kid, they'll say like at the place I went to, it was like this, and the other one would be like,
right,
wait, what? Because you're used to with these franchises having them being so homogenous that everyone gets the same exact experience. This has created a weird thing in our society. I'm not even joking. I talk to people about this a lot. I'm like, what did you have? The Rockefeller, or did you have
Are you
or did you have
Rockefeller?
Munch's Make Believe?
Right.
It's
Munch's make believe.
That's my first question on
I
my
just love
Tinder. Yeah.
Yeah,
Rockafire and Munch's make believe. Come
yeah.
on.
I mean, it's a good question to ask because I honestly think like it's what's the name of that film critic who
just likes
recently
to.
died? He interviews people.
Oh, I forget.
Oh shit.
Is that
Lipton?
Ebert and Roper?
Lipton.
James
James
Lipton?
Lipton. Yes, thank you. Yeah, that would be one of my James Lipton questions.
So
What's your
Tell me.
favorite? What's your favorite swear word?
Now Bushnell was also busy doing a few other things. He was heavily involved in robots. He was involved in digitizing maps with the company. That would be the forebearer of
Early
Google
GPS,
Maps and GPS. He created a
ETAC,
company that ETAC. Yep, he was involved in a company that would become what was sold to Lucasfilm, which became Pixar eventually. He was involved in some of the earliest like digital animation.
Yeah.
Yep. But during these Chuck E. Cheese times, he also wanted to get back into video games. And this was a smaller blip in this book, but it's a fascinating part. I want to say Sente?
Sente. Yeah.
Sente?
It's still a term from Go, so maybe Dylan knows.
Barely.
Checkmate.
It essentially is checkmate in Go. So it's like,
So Atari was check
it's like, no, fuck you.
in Japanese. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're
I was
coming
busy
back
reading
with
subtitles, yo.
Well, and Bushnell is having his Freedom Day party in 1984, the day he is finally able to compete again. The dude was talking it up his Freedom Day
It's
parties.
the Wonder Woman year.
Ooh,
Wow, when she comes back and fights a cheetah lady.
it could be better.
It could. Oh God, a meme.
Atari's good, but it could be better.
it could have yeah.
I love memes.
Nothing would
Sente.
make that movie better.
But yeah, he was hyping up his own coming back party so hard that Atari sued him like, you broke your contract. You said you wouldn't compete. You've been competing for the past
It's
year.
April. You don't come back till September.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some stupid shit like that.
So he actually had to put off his Freedom Day party. But so this is straight up a scene out of Silicon Valley. He rents a warehouse, has jungle animals brought in, and then he bursts out of a box and introduced the new concept for Sente machines, which was arcade cabinets that could have interchangeable cartridges. So Neo Geo.
a great concept, if you ask me.
It's honestly not a bad concept.
But can you imagine renting out a warehouse and bringing jungle animals
Yes.
in there and like having a big fucking party?
Brad, I have a very big imagination. Yes, of course I can.
That's a Nolan thing to do.
Well, I get a lot of. Do you guys watch Silicon Valley?
I've watched the first season.
I've never seen an episode.
Oh, you guys would love it. It's such a good show. He reminds me very much of Ehrlich Bachman, the guy who just runs an incubator for
Yes.
businesses and winds up getting credit for everything.
Yeah.
Deservedly or undeservedly sometimes, but this is his I'm coming back, and everyone was ready to jump on board because Bushnell is the guy who created Atari, created Pong, created the video games.
How could he go wrong?
They went bankrupt pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Chuck E. Cheese fell. Bally purchased Sente, and they went bankrupt themselves. Everything kind of collapsed pretty quickly there.
I only wish I
Yes.
could get into the eras of how Chucky dresses and how his face looks. I'm not going to get into it on this because there are very distinct eras.
The newest Chuck E. Cheese is the worst.
You mean Charles Entertainment?
for sure.
Cheese?
Charles Entertainment? Yeah.
Yes, of course, duh.
Yeah, that's.
I'm surprised that
fucked
Chuck
up.
E. Cheese hasn't been target for the Wall Street bets, because if there's like backing GameStop and AMC, it's like Chuck E. Cheese seems like a prime
I'm
candidate.
looking it up on Robinhood right now. Sorry, I'm still using Robinhood.
Well, they.
I've got most of my money.
I just
in it.
realized a couple days ago. I did not know that they filed for bankruptcy yet again.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. There's a really good Company Man YouTube video about it. Bushnell has not been stagnant for a fucking one day. This
No,
dude,
he's a shark, man. He's got to keep moving.
you know those like digital jukeboxes and like touch screen games you'd see in bars? He was involved in one of those first companies, Playnet and Aristo. U-Wink.
Risto.
U-Wink is another company with touchscreen kiosks that he was involved in.
Yeah, that was like almost like a Panera Chuck E. Cheese concept. When I saw the, at least when I saw the photos of what was it U-Wink?
U-Wink was the entertainment complex and dining experience.
Okay.
Instead of like having a server, I think you would just order everything from screens and play on the screens while you waited for your
sit
food.
at a table with friends and then play on screens with each other, and then they bring you pizza or some shit.
Which, it's, I can understand the pitch, but it's like if us three go out to a bar and then we just look at a screen the whole time.
Yeah. Guys, if we go to a bar, I don't want to talk about video games at all.
No.
Ever.
No.
Honestly,
I want to play solitaire 3-player.
Right.
I don't mind playing. I don't mind playing games with you guys at a bar, but I don't want to discuss video games. Let's be absolutely clear.
Because they're dumb.
That's business. That's business.
Well, I mean,
That's
if it comes up in natural conversation and everyone's into it, yes. But I don't want anyone to force being like, "Hey, did you guys play the latest update on blah blah blah?" I'd be like, "No, I didn't fucking do it."
It's you don't see him that often anymore. But I remember going maybe 5 years ago to a restaurant that had like a screen you could like play things on while you waited, and
Like a Chili's.
and they try to like upcharge you to like play things. I'm like, what is this shit?
Oh, man.
I'm sitting here at Chili's with my
Yes.
family. I don't want this.
No, you
So,
don't.
CEC Entertainment Incorporated is still selling at $53.98 a stock.
That's crazy.
What does it look like for the past year?
Honestly, hold on.
Like, is it a bump that's happening right now?
This might be old data. Hold on just a second.
Wow. Yeah, their debt ratio is insane.
It's huge. It's not good.
Bushnell started working for Atari again in 2010. He joined the company's board of directors.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yep. He worked for Modal VR. It was a VR enterprise to train security forces. He was a co-founder of Anti-Aging Games, which features memory, concentration, and focus games for healthy people over 35.
Yep.
Brain Rush, and that's for educational software. And then currently Global Gaming Technologies Corporation. He's appointed CEO and chairman. And yeah, this dude's busy. He's hustling. He's still providing products to people. I would love so much to spend some time with this man.
I would definitely love to drink a beer with this guy. This is a guy, I don't think I would ever want him to be CEO of anything for a long period of time.
No,
That's
he's
not
the
what he
idea
does.
guy. You'd pay him to be your idea guy.
Yeah.
Pay him a lot to do that.
He's an idea guy, but more so than I think than Steve Jobs. Like, he had at least a semi-proficient technical understanding of like how things worked. And I think that set him apart. But at the same time, the ADD of just like what's new. I mean, just being almost too far ahead of the curve. Definitely.
To his detriment sometimes, but
Yeah.
this dude saw the opportunity in Space War, created computer space.
Yeah.
He saw the opportunity in the Magnavox Odyssey. Al Alcorn created Pong, but Bushnell made it. Produced it.
Yeah.
Alcorn gets all the
Alcorn
credit for
could
that
make whatever
one.
he wanted. Without Bushnell, it would never have been a thing.
And without Bushnell, Joe Keenan would never have been president of Atari. He would have been some guy, other person's neighbor.
Without Joe Keenan, buying that house next to Nolan Bushnell. So
It's a fascinating story, and God, such a big fan of Nolan. I remember reading this book for the first time in high school and just thinking, wow, this guy sounds like the coolest dude ever. He parties and makes video games.
yeah. Yep.
And then as an adult now reading it, I'm like, he's a shrewd businessman who partied way too hard, but had a lot of fun and made some cool games.
Yeah.
Well, in the mid to late 2000s, he had a company called U-Wink.
Yeah.
And U-Wink, they were devoted to making those touch games you see in bars.
We talked
We just
this
talked
already.
about. Where were you?
I was
This
looking
was
up
like a couple minute conversation.
I was looking up stocks. I was looking up so it's owned by the Apollo
Touchscreens.
Let's talk about these.
I thought I had something to say.
Reach
No,
out
it's
to
I
awesome,
obviously
somebody.
did not. No. I was talking about how they got absorbed by something called the Apollo Management Group.
Yeah.
And they're still doing pretty well. Apollo Global Management, and they're running a little bit higher even from the stock that we saw earlier, which apparently was from 2014. I'm not sure why that's on Google anymore, but
So Bushnell was asked many times, but like about you were offered an opportunity to be one of the pillars of Apple computers. You missed out on being a billionaire. How do you feel about it? And he's like, honestly, like, yeah, it sucks. But if I had been that billionaire, I never would have met my wife. I wouldn't have my current family. Nothing would have happened the way it does. I wouldn't change it. Like I would say that too if I had said no, because
Yeah.
got to rationalize
God
it.
damn it. It's better than fuck.
My final thoughts: go pick up Ultimate History of Video Games by Stephen Kent if you are interested in anything we talked about tonight, because it also goes into Nintendo and Sega and everything else in between.
I would say pick it up.
what?
If you listen to video game podcasts at all, including this one, anyone, pick up Ultimate History of Video Games. For me, it's like ground zero of if you want a really good just book about. I think the latest edition goes up to like Pokemon or PS2. Do it.
Fascinating.
Yes, do not pass go. Get it. It's great. The only thing I have to say about it is I wish they would give it a little more reverence, because if you get the physical edition, that fucking cover just looks so dumb. This needs to be like a leather bound fucking
A collector's edition. And there's not enough pictures. There's barely any pictures.
Yeah.
And I would love a million pictures.
A lot of
because they'll even talk about specific articles that affected Atari, where it's a picture of Bushnell in a hot tub, and it pisses ex-wife off so much she refused to do an agreement. I'm like, that picture seems important. Let me see it.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, as reading Rainbow taught me, never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, because it is a garbage cover. It's horrible.
also I do that constantly, and I'm only rewarded for it. So
Good. See, you game the system.
because I judge a lot of things by its cover.
I have nothing else to say about Bushnell for this episode.
I could talk about the
so
characters
much.
in Chuck E. Cheese for about 3 hours.
In Doggies After Dark, we'll talk a little bit about the new Atari VCS, and we'll talk about Steve Jobs at Apple. But that's all that I have to say. Do you two have anything else you'd want to mention tonight?
Yeah, I think we barely scratched the surface. I would love to do just a full-on Atari, history multi-episode.
Talk about the Cassar years with like when the 2600 was in its heyday, and then the Crash could be its own series as well.
Without Ray Cassar, we would not have Yar's Revenge. So, because that's Ray backwards. So,
That's a decent game.
Tom, did you know that I have played and reviewed every single game on the TurboGrafx in the last 2 weeks?
no, I didn't know that.
I have.
Why'd you do that to yourself?
I
I hate the fucking TurboGrafx.
And I realize this is Doggies After Dark stuff.
We've transitioned.
Well, Dylan, how can people reach out and support us if they want to?
Well, they can find us on Patreon. Hair of the Dogcast on Patreon. Hair of the Dogcast on all of our social medias, essentially. If you want to donate to us, that is absolutely fantastic. You are going to get extra content, even starting at the $3 range. The farther you go into it, the more you can dictate what we do and what we talk about. Give us enough money or send us enough beer, and we're your friends for life. We are truly stray. We are truly stray dogs. And we want it, and we gotta have it.
And when he says enough money or enough beer, it's not much. Just like if you give us like $5 or throw us some beers, we will worship you.
We are humble. We are humble dogs.
That's definitely true. Yeah.
And if you support us at like $5 to $10 range, if you support us, you can even choose an episode. The previous Dogcast episode, we covered the Resident Evil games.
That was a really fun one.
In a very broad sense, we did that for Ryan, who gave us all this beer. And the next Raw Dogs, we were doing the lore of Diablo, which is fun because I've never played a Diablo game.
It's all like bastardizations of the Bible. So,
that's a book that I pretended to read in school. So
that's a book. That's a book I've actually read all the way through.
Good for you.
Because I'm a funny agnostic.
I just read Neil Gaiman, so I thought that was enough.
That's fine too.
Yeah, that works.
It's
That
actually
checks
quite
out.
close. Yeah.
And if they wanted to reach out on Twitter, Tom, how can they do that?
At Hot Dogcast. Go ahead. Just fucking shout at us. We'll answer.
Hot dog.
And we'll respond. And yeah. Do all these things.
Yes,
Thanks
so
for listening.
this is the Raw Dogs. Thank you for checking us out. We're going to be doing the Diablo lore in 2 weeks. The Dogcast will, of course, be next week. We are sharing a podcast because we're such good friends. And
What?
Nolan, if you're listening, or Alcorn, if you're listening, or anybody that's involved,
you
Cynthia
imagine?
Villanueva, if you're listening, heck,
Cynthia, we'd love to have you on.
we would
Got a few
love,
questions.
we would talk with any of you. We'd love to have you. So thanks for tuning in. If you want to hear more about Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computers, and his time at Atari, join us on Patreon because we're doing Doggies After Dark. And we might talk about the VCS if we have time as well. So
Can't wait.
thanks, everybody. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, we'll be right back to talk a little bit more.